I love doing this podcast so much, and I'm so glad you could be here today because I reach out to people, in hopes that they'll say yes to joining me on the podcast. And I just sat down with Principal L. We're about to have a conversation, and he has amazing stories. He's an amazing person. I'm like jacked. I don't even know if I could sit down. I'm gonna have to do the podcast standing up after talking to him for the last little while. But Principal L is someone, an administrator, an educator that so many people look up to. I've followed his work for years, and even just kind of listening to him and just having conversations with him before we started recording this, he has so many amazing stories, so many amazing experiences, and it's a credit to the work that he does to empower people, because I know he will not take credit for the stuff that he does. So I'm going to give it to him because he's such a big believer in the people that he serves and does everything for them. And he has a lot of great stories on that. So Principal L, thanks so much for taking the time today. I know there's a million things you could be doing. Probably with all the TV shows that you've been on, this is kind of like a huge downgrade that some guy from Canada with a mic, but here we are. So Principal L, thanks for being on. Can you just tell people?
Toronto Raptors shirt on.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I had to do it.
They beat my Sixers, man.
I know. I know. I had to do it. I know you love basketball, and that, we just beat you. But hey, Principal L, can you just tell a little bit about your career and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I grew up in inner city of Philadelphia, in the housing projects, great community, raised by a single mom, supported by my teachers. I started in the inner city elementary school. My mother walked into my third grade classroom. I was next to the youngest. My mother raised 6 boys as a single mom, and I was next to the youngest, and my mom said to my teacher, young white female, not from our community, but they're saving Private Ryan every day, George. And she said, please, I need your support. I need your help. One of my children must graduate from college. And my teacher had every reason to say, I can't focus on your son. I've got 20, 25 other students to help, but that's not what good teachers do. Excellent teachers move ordinary children to do extraordinary things. Worked with my 4th grade teacher, was an older African-American female, been in our school about 30, 40 years. We thought she came with the building. So had about 10 after-school programs, not one had a title. They were all called Get In Here. And we got in. We all had that adult who supported us. And those 2 ladies helped me get into a middle magnet school for gifted kids, went on to high school, met some fabulous teachers and administrators, started playing ball, thought I could skip college and go to the NBA. They said, no, son, you can't jump over credit cards, so you're not going to the NBA, but you can get an MBA. See, that's what good teachers do. They're honest with you, right? They have that relationship. It's authentic, and they can tell you the truth. Went away to college, came home, started working in television, went into a high school, George, one day to talk to my teacher said, come speak to some kids on career day about your job in TV. I'm working in, hoping to develop a career as a sports announcer. I was a production assistant. And the kids, and I'm bragging about how these teachers were such a different in my life. And the kids said, if you can come in and motivate us and you love these teachers so much, how come you aren't a teacher? And I'd never thought about that. Like, why wasn't I a teacher, right? And so I quit my TV job, got a master's degree, certificate to teach, went right back to the same high school. 2 years later, started teaching. And I thought the kids would thank me for, coming back to work. They said, no, you were a fool to leave that TV job. We were hoping you would help us get a job when you graduated. But, these kids can be so concrete, man. And that's how my career started. And I started working in the high school, but realized that high school reform does not begin in high school. 50% of the kids in urban school districts drop out in the 9th grade or before. So I dedicated 10 years of my life in our feeder middle school. And in 10 years, we lost almost 20 kids to murder in our community. And I knew I had to have an impact in the community. And that's when I started teaching kids to play chess, George.
Yeah, and you were just saying about that. You were on Good Morning, and I was like saying you're like on Good Morning America, and then the George Couros podcast. So sorry, man.
That's okay. Listen, I gotta stay in the trenches. See, you're making it happen. See, you and I can relate. So we're in the same foxhole. So this is an honor.
Thanks,
this
man.
is an honor for me. I just need you to wear a Sixers shirt today.
I will. Okay, I will. Hey, so you were just talking about this, and like I'm going to get to the chess thing in a second, but there's something I want to ask you about, because when I talk to you, when I read your stuff, when I see your posts on social media, one thing that, like, this is no matter what the pedagogy, your leadership style, any of this stuff, like, I'm sure people have criticized you for elements in your lifetime, right? I don't think anyone could ever criticize you that you don't believe in kids and believe in their abilities or believe in their abilities to flourish. Do you think that matters? Like, like, how much does, well, I know it matters. How much does that actually matter in the development of a kid? Just that belief that you have in them.
It's a game changer. It is the great equalizer. When people talk about equity today, I think the idea is that every child, my motto is every child deserves at least one person to be crazy about them.
Yep.
But I also believe that the children must know that we have, when they know that we have the belief that they're intelligent, that they can be successful, that they're capable, it gives them this feeling that they're able, that intelligence crosses all racial lines, all religious lines, all social lines, economic lines. That even if that child has had some adult in the past who doubted them every day, whether because of implicit or explicit bias, the fact that an adult believes in them gives them the power. And you hear people talk about these stories all the time, how they had this one person who believed in them so much that they started believing that they could do it. Like, they started believing, I can go to school, I can be successful,
Yep.
I can get a job, I can start my own company. So I believe that the most important thing that we can do for kids is let kids know that we loved you before we ever met you. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do or say, it's not going to change the way I feel about you. And for some children, they don't hear that often, that people love and care about them. And oftentimes when they hear it, it'll be from some adult in some schoolhouse, somewhere. So it's I'll never get accused of that. I might get accused of loving them too much. My teacher say, "Principal, you always want to give them everything," And they know I love them, and I'm just so thankful for the teachers I work with who support me, all the Saturday schools and the summers and all the things that we do. And I take care of my teachers too, because I know they give so much of themselves. So we must take care of teachers. But my first book was I Choose to Stay. And that's a choice I made. And the kids actually came up with that title because I turned down a big raise, when I was offered to leave the school. And they told me, thanks for choosing to stay. But you know what they also said to me, though, George, that I didn't think about? That we choose to be here as well. Yeah. That we have children, their families, they can be anywhere, but they choose to be in our presence. I posted on Twitter the other day a poem often about, I ain't got a pencil. All the things, this kid is talking about, getting his sister dressed for school, no heat, no parent, and gets to school, gets them a warm breakfast, and gets to class, and then the teacher fusses with him because he ain't got a pencil. Right. And I was that teacher at one time. If you're not ready for life, you're not ready for school. But I needed to understand that these children go through so much just to be in our presence. And this pandemic has uncovered a lot of that for folks who were in denial. That yes, these children struggle often, and when they get to, but they want to be with us. So yeah, that's a 5-minute response to a 5-second question. Hey. But that belief is so important for their resilience, their self-efficacy, their self-esteem, their self-confidence. When we improve all of those constructs for children, then we're building them to deal with any failure, any struggle in life, because we can't change, we can't alter that. They will struggle. They will have to overcome obstacles and barriers. But when failure is normative, resilience becomes second nature, and that's what believing in kids does.
I'm listening to you, and I my own children are, one's about to enter school. She's 4.5 years old, and we have a 8 or 9 month. She's a baby still.
Oh, you got a new baby.
Yeah. And when this is something that's really important to me, and you just brought it home, is that when we talk about equity, it's about raising everyone up to their highest levels. And I think that to me is what is really powerful in what you're saying, is seeing that kids can achieve more, that they are like, there is that belief. And like when we talked earlier today, I think a lot of people believed in you, but you also had to raise yourself up too. And that's what they believed you could do, and put that, like I've always said that sometimes what we need, and I think this is really crucial for teachers, is that for us to believe in ourselves, somebody has to believe in us first. And you've shown that, and it's like, that's what raises people up. And so I really appreciate your focus on, raising everybody up. And I think that to me is crucial, because you can sometimes see like, hey, let's like knock some people down, so that we can attain their level. It's like, no, everybody's got to be raised up. And like when you talk about, you'd mentioned, being on Good Morning America, like, maybe you got to hook up for me at some point when I can cross the border and go on. But you talked about your chess team, right? And I love this. And you're like, just your excitement about it. So tell us a little bit about the chess team, and, not only about the process, but what does it lift kids up to do? I love it.
So when I first started working in this middle school, I found out that they had a storied chess program years prior to my arrival, but the coach had left, the program died. And I just, my brother taught me to play chess when I was young. I have, older brothers, of course, as I mentioned, but he only taught me enough moves so he could continue to beat me. So I really didn't learn about the power of chess until I was in college, and I started teaching about, and I started learning about how mathematical chess is. So I started teaching special education students mathematics on the chessboard, right? Knights move on right angles, bishops move on diagonals. The chessboard is a large square that contains 64 smaller squares. What I thought I was giving these students was mathematics, but what I was really giving them was intellectual capital. They were now walking around a school carrying chessboards. And if you don't assume anything else, George, about a kid who's carrying a chessboard, you assume that they are intelligent. You believe that they're smart. So I learned early in my career as a teacher that smart is not something you are, it is something that you can become. These kids are walking around carrying chessboards, and other kids are, you play chess? Aren't you in the learning disabled program? They say, yeah, let's play a match and see if you should be my roommate, right? It humbles you.
Yeah.
But but also the confidence, and then the girls started playing, because chess is a sport that's dominated by men. But as you witness in the Netflix hit The Queen's Gambit, now that's a fictional story, but it just shows you. But it's a story about a woman who becomes a very, very good in a game dominated by men. But the story that Good Morning America covered for me was about my girls' team, that's the Queen's Gambit personified.
Yeah.
I mean, these are kids, these are girls who come from struggling communities, struggling homes, many of them single parents, but these kids are playing chess and recording their moves in algebraic notation. So in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, they're writing algebra, problem solving, critical thinking, learning, not just seeing the turn, but seeing around the turn. Some of these girls, they're going away to college on full scholarships. They don't need any man. They don't need any guy to make their life complete. I tell these girls, listen, when a guy comes to you and offers you his phone number, you tell him first he needs to solve a quadratic equation and factor a polynomial. Then call me when you graduate from school, because if he's not on his way, he will be in your way. I have 2 daughters now. My daughters are teenagers and one's in college, but I tell them all the time that you have to be strong. We have to build, like you said, build them up, right there. And George, it's crazy, but there are people who believe the only way for them to get ahead is they got to tear other people down. You see it on social media. Like they have to build, they have to totally change whatever you wrote just to make themselves look good. We don't have to do that. No. We can build each other up. Iron sharpens iron. But this chess program for me was a way for me to sit at a table with a kid, learn about them. We play chess for hours and just talk. Some of them never had that kind of interaction. And I of course, I was just teaching mathematics, but these kids went on to become national champions. Arnold Schwarzenegger came to visit our school when he was running for president, then challenged one of my girls to a chess match. I said, Arnold, you don't want to play these girls. They one of the guys. These girls treat the chess pieces like offspring. They play hours and never trade a piece. He said, no, I want to play her, right? We'll play little Denise Picker. Pink glasses, honor roll student. She said, I was nervous, Mr. L. He's rich, he's famous, and he's married to a woman who has more money than he does, so I know he's upset. I said, how do you know about that? She said, but I just treat him like he was another guy, and I checkmate him. Arnold said, you terminated the Terminator. Then agreed to write the foreword in my book. So my first book, Arnold wrote the foreword and talked about Denise in the foreword. He remembered that butt kicking that he received from Denise, but talked about how using chess as a weapon against so many of the ills of the community, and it just became so popular. And still, in that 1997 was the first time my students went on to win in the nationals, and that was in Philly. I'm in Delaware now. My students are two-time national champions. Wow. 2014, 2016. The only school in Delaware that ever win a national chess title did it twice in 2 years, and with so many girls at the front. You know, we live in this era of Kamala Harris, first female vice president, first African American, first Asian with Jamaican roots. Just so many firsts for women. But to think that begins somewhere with some little girl that someone said to them, you can do it. You can be whoever you can do whatever you want to do, but there will be struggle, but you can overcome it. So I'm so proud of these girls who are doing a great thing. All the girls and the guys, just the tremendous effort they're making, and all of the attention that they get, which inspires people to understand that children have to be challenged to use their minds.
And so if anyone ever says you can't get excited over chess, just so you know, just watch the last couple of minutes. If you can't get excited over chess, that's amazing. And I think that like, going back to that notion of belief, I actually just started my podcast bucket list, and I actually just put one item on there that I have said that is now on my bucket list, but it's already crossed off. Get Principal L to do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. It's checked off.
I want to play her.
That was
Michael Jordan played. Will Smith played. Will Smith wrote the foreword in my Immortality Influence book.
What is going on here?
Listen, I was at Will's house in California trying to get this man to understand how. Now, Will's a chess player, but it's so many people out in this world who play chess. LeBron James plays chess.
That's incredible.
There's so many people because it forces them to think when they're on the court. Football players, Curtis Martin talked about how he would go sit and play chess with Jim Brown, and just for hours just play chess, talk football, talk strategy. It is such an amazing game, and it's intergenerational. That's what makes it powerful.
You know what I love about this is that your excitement for what you're sharing right now is guaranteed going to get someone to start their own program. And that's
I'll bring it down. I'll bring it. Some of my kids in school say, Principal, you're doing too much, Principal. Calm, you're too hot. You're too hot.
No, that's good. I love it. What is the Ralph Waldo Emerson? Nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. Right? I love it. So
they need to start those chess programs. They can reach out to me as well if they need support. I offer support, no cost at all. I can give them resources, books, materials. Chess boards are hard to get because of the Queen's Gambit notoriety. But anybody who follows your podcast who needs support, if they mention your name and not mention the Raptors, I will help.
It's the two parts there. Okay, I gotcha. Hey, you said something that I think will resonate with a lot of people is that, you often see people tearing people down and like my focus, your focus has been like lift people up. Right. And I think part of it is that in education, there is obstacles that we have to deal with as a profession, and there's struggles that we have as a profession. And you reminded me, we talked earlier, and I was hoping you might kind of want to discuss it and talk about this. For our kids to be successful, and I've grown in my career, saying like we always got to do what's best for kids, and sometimes felt like I actually put the interests of kids and pushed aside adults. And I think that I became better at that, saying like if you serve the adults, then the kids will be taken care of. That is what's best for kids. And you talked about this, and you briefly mentioned it, but I wonder if you could kind of expand it more. You actually. The current job that you have, is this okay to talk about? You know, we're
Yeah,
bring it up.
it's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah.
yeah. And you mentioned it, and it's your current job that you had. You almost lost because you were advocating for your teachers. So, can you talk about that experience and what happened?
Yeah, I work in a very high needs community, and I work in a charter school which is authorized by the state. So we're a public school, 90+% high poverty. It's a struggling community, but those teachers have been there for years, and they're underpaid. I mean, as all teachers are underpaid. So I felt that as the principal, it was my job to sort of campaign and advocate for them with the board that we've got to find a way to pay our teachers more. And there was a faction of the board, not the entire board, but a faction of the board that felt that that's not your job. As a principal, you serve the board.
Right.
My belief, as you said, was if I want to help these kids, I got to serve
Help
these
the teachers. Yep.
And it's not. And here's the thing: any raise you get teachers, it's not going to change their life, but the idea is it just shows them that we value you, and I just needed to find a way. When when it's a noble job to say you're a teacher, but when you go to the supermarket to pay for your groceries, they want to hear that you're a teacher. They need you to pay that bill.
Yeah.
So I campaigned and to the point where the board just came in one day with the police and said, listen, you can't come back into the school. That we believe that, luckily I
didn't know that part.
Yeah, they came back now. So I wasn't there. I was actually with Jimmy, Todd, Jeff.
Yeah.
We were doing this what great teachers do.
Yep.
Professional development, and my AP called me and said, listen, the board they're here with the police.
Jeez.
And they emailed me, called me and said, don't come back to the school, turn in your keys, turn in your computer. And I'm like, what is the problem? You're under investigation. What did I do? So then they changed the locks on 18 doors. This was like Lean on Me, like 2017. It's like
I remember that movie.
So my teachers are like, what's going on? You got the police in here, and and so they asked for a meeting with the board, and they said, what are you investigating? He said, we don't know what we're investigating, but when we do, we'll let you know. And the teacher said, no, that doesn't work for us. That man fights for us. They knew what it was about.
Right.
And several teachers said that some board members said to them, what is it about this man that you follow him like this? Like they struggled with the fact that these teachers were following my leadership. So they tried to win the people, but they underestimated the people. They underestimated teachers. They tried to make me look like a criminal. And so the next day the teachers walked out. And I had never shared with the community or parents that I was struggling with the board to try to get better pay and working conditions for these teachers. I never shared it because I didn't want to embarrass the school, because if I embarrass the school, it impacts the kids. And ultimately, I want the kids to flourish. But once the teachers decided, and so half the staff came to work anyway because they said, this is how teachers think. Somebody has to be here to tell the kids what's going on. So we all can't stay out. But they told the board, until that man's back, there'll be no school. When the parents found out, they said, what are they doing? What's going on? So the parents organized this huge march. Fox News goes live from the front of the school. And so in 2 days, 5 board members resigned. And we got a new board. I got my job back. Teachers got their raise. Administrators got raises. And we're in such a better place. But I said to myself, wow, these people because they were told by the board, if you don't come to work tomorrow, you will be fired. 30 people did not show up to work, George, to send a message. And I'm telling you, if they hadn't walked out, I'd be here right now with you, walking around non-void, looking like Pretty Boy Floyd and unemployed. But they fought. They knew I was fighting for them, and they fought for me. And we had some board members who did not get involved with that, who opposed that, and they helped to develop a strong board right now. We have a great board, and but it shows you what happens when teachers stand up. Especially at this time when you got all this talk around forcing teachers to go back in buildings that may not be ready for them to go back in the COVID environment. And there are some schools that I'm sure should be open, are ready to open, but there are some that don't have the proper ventilation, don't have the proper PPE, proper spacing. So we have to value our teachers. And this was one where they stood up for me. And that's why choosing to stay means so much to me. That's why I had those shirts printed. And so many people have supported the movement, because it's a powerful statement that when we choose to stay for one another, we're choosing to stay for the kids. And that could be in any role you're in. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be in the cafeteria making pancakes. But when you make that choice, it sends a message to the world that we're choosing our children. We're choosing to work and support one another.
This is incredible. So this is like, you obviously have the connection. So there's going to be a movie. So I'm just going to ask this right now. If it could be set in the 70s, I know a guy who looks like one of the Bee Gees who'd be a great character.
That would be
right.
You. Be...
That's actually how the podcast started. It was that you commented that I look like one of the Bee Gees, which is the
after you lost the weight. When I saw your picture on Facebook,
I'm just saying,
that's one of the Bee Gees. I said, no, it's George. Look at him.
Only like there's like two people that would get that, and I think it's you and me. So just saying, if you could set that in the 70s, I got a guy who looks like one of the Bee Gees, would fit right into the cast. So
I got you. You are in. No audition needed.
Well, hey, this is perfect segue, because obviously that community. And I'm not just talking, I'm not just talking staff. I'm talking parents, kids. Amazing how they came together. And you actually wrote a book, which like obviously is the most like makes sense title, is Building a Winning Culture. And so talk about that book. It's amazing, because obviously everything that you've been talking about in this podcast lends into that notion of building a winning culture. But I know there's a lot more that you share.
Building a winning team.
Sorry, building a winning team. Yeah.
But about building a strong culture.
Yeah.
So they go, because you can't have a winning team without a strong culture. And when you build a strong culture, you'll have a strong, positive team. So they go hand in hand. And now I'm a co-author on it with two great guys, two district level administrators here in Delaware with me, Dr. Joseph Jones, who's a superintendent in our Voltech district, and Dr. T.J. Vari, who's assistant superintendent in Appoquinimink School District, fastest growing school district, in Delaware. And we've worked together for years. We actually wrote Passionate Leadership, was our first book. Todd Whitaker wrote the forward, there. And Jimmy Costas wrote the forward in Building a Winning Team. And the power in it is that, people often say teamwork makes the dream work, but there's so much work that goes into, because when you're interviewing, when you're recruiting people, you need to be thinking about them being a part of your team, and they all can't be the same. Everybody got to bring something different. Like I say, let's build each other up. Let's embrace our differences. Diversity is important. Diversity matters. So bringing positive people onto your team will help you build a positive culture. And the principal is the prime facilitator of culture in the school. We make it. We make it or we break it. Now, teachers control that culture in the classroom. They help make up the greater culture in the school. But as the leader, you have to be visible. They can't only see you in the yearbook. They've got to see you. They've got to feel you. You've got to be a part of what's going on. And listen, I have teachers who've gone away. I had a teacher who went to the Middle East to see his kids every year for 2 weeks. Yeah. I taught his class. The kids, they didn't like it. They complained about it. They didn't want the principal teaching the class. But every time they were going to get a sub, they would ask me, are you going to be the sub? They don't want us to know it, but they love having us there. And the teachers love knowing that we don't mind getting in the trenches, with them. That's how you build a strong culture. The best form of recruitment is retention, and the best form of retention is recruitment.
What I love, and I know that you and I both have a love of basketball, and when you talk about like diversity and having people bringing in different strengths, but you also talk about the notion of positivity, right? And like when I hired, I distinctly look for like who's going to help move this vision forward, but also thinks different than I do. and, you know, it can actually connect with people that might not connect with me. I didn't need another George on my staff, right? Like I already got that. And the reason I bring up basketball is we've both watched it long enough that there's sometimes these super teams that are built that don't ever actually pan out because they have too many people that are really amazing at what they do, but they all kind of do the same thing. It's actually, you have to have people that do different things to actually, you know, to bring a team together. And it doesn't mean that they're not, because I think sometimes when we think about that, there's sometimes where you have someone who has these positive ideas and then you have the negative person ripping them down so that you never move forward. And I don't think that's what we're talking about. You can have different viewpoints, but you still have that same focus, that same big goal that you want to achieve together. And we've seen that, you know, like there's teams that I could probably name that you could probably name that have that, right? It's why the Raptors won a couple of years ago and they beat Philadelphia in that, you know, Eastern Conference semifinals, because they actually had superstars, but they had people that knew, you know, their roles. And it's actually one of the reasons, to be honest with you, the Sixers are doing really well. Is Doc Rivers is getting them to embrace their roles more, and it's fascinating to see that. And I love that, because I know building a winning team is something that you do, and it's something that connects with, you know, our love for basketball. And this actually is go ahead. Sorry.
A Philly guy at the point guard. You got a Philly guy at the point guard there too.
Kyle Lowry.
Yes, sir.
I love him.
Sir. You got some Philly influence in there.
All right.
And you know what else was great about that team is you had guys who were hungry.
Yep.
Who could have been superstars in other places.
Yep.
Who became stars, but it was a right place, right time, and that role was there to defer. You know, you have to have, you know, that's why I teach kids about chess. Every leader is not out front. Some people lead from the sideline. Some people lead from the rear. Some on the flanks. They're chess pieces that attack on the flank. But the idea, just be someone who wants to make a difference. Who wants to choose impact over compliance. And that's the key. Get those people together and they will rise. But working together is the key.
Okay, so I gotta just say this about Kyle Lowry. Okay, so I actually was there when they won the championship. I was in at Golden State, and I was high-five. I was sitting right behind Kyle Lowry's wife and his kids, and I was high-fiving them while Kyle Lowry went off, and I was just like, it was amazing. Like it was one of the coolest things ever, because I saw this mom come in with her kids, and they're all wearing Lowry jerseys. And I'm like, is that? And so I went to Google right away. I'm like, Kyle Lowry's wife. I'm like, oh, that's incredible, right? And they could win. And so I'm high-fiving. It was one of the coolest experiences. So we love Lowry in Canada, man.
He's a great guy. His family, his mom. I mean, that young man, what you see on the court is a manifestation of how he was raised.
If you tell me you know him, I'm shutting this podcast down, because I can't handle this anymore. I can't handle it. No, basically, everyone I've wanted to meet, you've played chess with. Like, I can't handle this.
But everybody in Philly knows his story and his family. I have friends who know his family very well, and they're amazing. So what you see is the result of years of hard work, of pouring into that young man. He's very active in the community.
Oh yeah,
very great personality, and he's a winner. You talk about building a winning team, you got to have a point guard. That's why I love Magic Johnson. Like Magic Johnson wasn't the guy getting 50 points a game, but Magic was about the assist. And as the principal, you have to love assists more than you love points. You have to be more like Magic than you were Michael and Carmelo and these other guys. You got to set them up like a Reese cup, so they don't look like a butternut. That's what you got to do.
Hey, just one last thing on Lowry. One thing I love about Lowry was he was not a star. Like, he worked his way up, and he didn't come into the NBA and years and years he barely played. He came to Toronto, and talk about building a winning team. They brought him the Messiah Jury. Do you know who Messiah Jury is? He's the GM. He's either the president or GM.
Yeah. He's the one that had an issue after the game, right?
Yeah. He is. I know this is an education podcast, but I got to take this chance while we're here.
And the ladies always complain, like, why are they talking about sports?
Messiah Jury. So when the Raptors won, it's actually was kind of interesting when the Raptors won. There was like two rumors. One was Kawhi Leonard was going to go, and the other one was Masai Ujiri would leave. And I said, look, I can handle losing Kawhi. We cannot lose Masai Ujiri because the vision that Masai has on building a team is so crucial to what we do, and he will figure it out. It might not be next year, but he will figure it out. And yeah, like so he's I don't want to get into because he's like they haven't renewed his contract yet, and I'm like he'd give him the team because he's the best. Yeah. I love Masai Ujiri. Actually, if you look at the Toronto Raptor history, he should be like you talk about players getting statues all the time. Kyle Lowry deserves a statue. Masai Ujiri deserves a statue for the Raptors. What he had done for that team, he is amazing.
He built a winning team.
Absolutely. And so, and winning organization, and not only do they win, they do it the right way. And I love that man. He is amazing. So that being said, you actually have, and perfect timing, you have a follow-up. And I think this follow-up to building a winning team couldn't actually come at a better time. And so what is it's retention
for a change.
Retention for a change. And it's not out yet. It's going to be out pretty soon. And I highly suggest, and like, if you are watching this podcast and you're not like jacked up, like I don't, then there's nobody's going to do it for you. But building winning team, you can see that in the links, you can get that book, but tell us about the follow-up that's coming up and why it's so important right now.
Right. So again, with my co-authors, TJ and Joe, we wrote this book because we felt that it's important not only for us to recruit positive people onto our teams and hire them, recruit talented people who are going to make a difference, but they've got to stay. Mm-hmm. They've got to come. We can't. The turnover is unbelievable in education in some areas. So we've got to create these cultures. We got to transform cultures so people are knocking the door down to get in, not knocking it down to get out. Mm-hmm. And so, and then at this time, with this pandemic, there's so much talk around a mass exodus of teachers, after this whole thing is over. So there are key strategies in this book on what we can do in our cultures. What are some strategies we can use to support teachers and other staff, to support administrators? We often talk about teacher support, but administrators need that support as well, because as you said, if we take care of them, If I'm a district level administrator and I take care of my principals, my APs, my administrators, they're going to take care of their teachers. Those teachers are going to take care of the children. So we've got to make sure that we're building systems that offer that support, but also that give them opportunities for growth. That means we've got to have those honest and authentic conversations, those difficult ones about change. We talked about change earlier. Change is important. Moving them into that zone where we know the only way for you to improve your community as an administrator is for you to improve yourself. Because the principal or the administrator's most important job is to help teachers improve their practice, right? We build relationships and connections because we want you to improve your practice, because then you impact children in the positive way. That doesn't happen if we train, we hire people, we have them for a couple years, they leave and go make some other school better. We've got to find a way to support these teachers and administrators, finding ways to highlight them, giving them building capacity, giving them opportunities to grow as leaders, giving them responsibilities, not just mundane roles, but give them opportunities where they can grow, not just go through a situation, but grow through a situation. Allow them to struggle, and learn. So I think this book is going to be big, as you say, very timely, 100%. And not just in schools, but in many organizations. It's a struggle to retain high quality, talented employees. So we have to begin to focus on not only how do we recruit them, how do we retain them and hold on to them so the organization flourishes.
Okay, so I gotta ask you this, because as I'm listening to you, I think this is really important. So the one answer, and I just want your thoughts on this, because I have a very strong opinion. When someone says to me, I'll say like, "Hey, how's your principal?" Right? And if they say this answer, it's a red flag for me. It's like, "Oh, they're really nice. They let me do whatever I want to do." I'm like, that's not good. That to me is not good, right? And okay, so I'm not crazy here. And one thing that you said that really is important to me is that we build relationships so we can help people improve, right? And I believe that when you are, some people are really great at their work. They're really, and a lot of great teachers have principals who let them do whatever they want to do. But I really believe sometimes those teachers leave because they crave mentorship. They want to get better. And when they feel that they've kind of outgrown their administrator, they leave. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, am I totally crazy what I'm saying? Because I know, like, hey, I want autonomy in my job, but I need someone to push me too.
And that's the key. And then, I hate to go back to sports, but I mean, even athletes, even entertainers, they all have coaches, right? They all they don't want a person just blowing smoke and saying that I'm great. Like, I need to get better, right? This work that we do, this work is our passion. Our job is to get better at it, right? And that can't happen if I have an administrator who's afraid to tell me what I need to hear. And listen, and I don't want to criticize, administrators, especially these young ones. It's tough working with adults. Trust me. My mother warned me about that, right? I told my mom, she said, when I wanted to be a principal, she said, why do you want to leave teaching? I said, Mom, I'm tired of breaking up fights in the cafeteria. She said, don't you know, as a principal, you would break up more fights between your teachers than you ever had. But the idea was, I knew that if I wanted to impact a larger number of students, I had to be able to impact teachers. But those teachers want someone who's willing to, and if you have a relationship and you come to them with compassion, you come to them with empathy, you come with patience, with love, with respect, they will embrace and accept the fact that you came in and said, listen, I know you thought that lesson was great, but I watched those kids, right? And it was hard for you to watch them because you were caught up in the lesson. Some just did not get it, right? That, let's talk about how we can make that better. Let me come. And that person say, hey, help me out. Talk to me. What can I do? Who can I go see who may have already done that? Because I'm coming to you with a level of respect. I'm telling you, you're doing a great job, but today just didn't go the way you wanted. But let me help you get it there. And I have to be honest at times and say, listen, I don't even know what. I have to call one of my colleagues who's working with a teacher who's doing this. I have to be open and authentic and honest about that too. We have limitations as administrators, as leaders, but it doesn't happen if we're not honest and authentic. So, but the key is people want to be pushed. And you mentioned mentorship. Mentoring is so important. I think that's the part of leadership that doesn't get talked about enough. And of course, you would talk about it because you're just the man. I thought I was the man, but I'm the man talking to the man. But yes, mentorship is so important. And mentorship means that when I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, I don't let you do whatever you want to do. I let you do what you need to do. That's going to help you get better and help someone else get better. So whenever people describe, I have no problem when people say, hey, do you like your principal? And say, yeah, I like him. It's just that it's times when I gotta, I have to justify everything with him. Like I hear people, yes, because you know what? If you're putting it in front of my kids, if it was my own children at home, you'd have to justify it with me. So why should I green light everything to do the same thing here? These children in school are our children. So you're going to justify it. But if you tell me they need it and they're going to benefit from it, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I get you what you need and help support you. But if we have that relationship, then it's not difficult because we know that we're about improving one another, because when we improve one another, everybody rises up.
It's like if you ever get a chance to see Principal L in a keynote, you have to do it. Like, cause I feel like I got this like one-on-one keynote right now and I'm just jacked up. Hey, when this stupid stuff is all over, I'll tell you, you and I are going to a Sixers game. I'll get tickets. I will wear, I don't know, either an Embiid or a Simmons jersey. I don't care, even if they're playing Raptors. Cause you know what? Even if I wanted to, I'm not dumb enough to wear a Raptors jersey at a Philadelphia home game. I'd be terrified.
Well, listen, Kyle Lowry's from there.
Okay, maybe I'll wear a Lowry jersey.
Yeah, I'll just tell him you're just his long lost brother.
I know. There's no arena that I'd wear an opposing team's jersey. I'm too scared. I don't want to get trash talked the whole game and stuff like that too. But you and I are going to a game. Are you in? Like, are you in for this? I'm like,
I'm in like Earl
Yeah,
Flynn.
probably if we go, there's gonna be all these celebrities there, and they'll know you, and I'll probably end up in a TV show, right? And they'll say, "Who's that BG guy that you're hanging out with?"
You should see my Rolodex, man. Mo Cheeks, Charles Barkley. Well,
What?
because I worked with the Sixers, for a
Yeah.
couple years before I started teaching. So I had some great. I mean, look,
Oh no.
this is my man right here.
Oh, the doctor, Julius.
Doc, and I'm actually met Doc when I was a kid. So I've
That's awesome.
known Doc like all my life. When he first came to Philly, he came into the community.
Yeah.
He wanted. You talk about
him.
Yeah. A statesman. Julius Irving is it, man.
He was
Julius
probably
Erving.
he was probably my first. I wouldn't say he was my favorite player, but he was the first player that I loved, if that makes sense. And there was this really bad basketball game on my computer where it was Larry Bird versus Dr. J. I don't know if you remember this. I would love to play it again because it was the worst compared to what it is now. Like there's like two things you could do, and it's just amazing. But I like loved Dr. J growing up and just thinking about all those things. So I get to. We should do a sports podcast one time too, because I could talk sports with you all day.
We should, because Andrew Toney in the Boston. Now, Danny Ainge said he still has nightmares about. They called Andrew the Boston Strangler, right? There was some war. Doc and Larry Bird, they fought one game.
Yeah,
I was so shocked. I mean,
probably
and then shook hands right after, because that's what you did in the NBA. Back
probably wasn't even a foul when they fought at that time, right? So
no, not at all.
So you were like in TV for a little while, and thank goodness you ended up in education. But what's next? I would love to know, like, what are you gonna do after education? Do you ever see? There's a million things that you could do. I would just love to see, like, what do you ever think, like, hey, if I ever leave education, this is what I'd like to do next?
I'm in year 34, and I'm just enjoying the ride, man.
Yeah.
I really I've got a superintendent certificate, I got a doctorate, but I just have so at some point in my life, maybe I might become a superintendent, maybe I might assist some district with some operations. I'd love to start my own school. So that's my big dream, George, and I probably should get you to help me because you just connected to everybody. So I would love to start a public boarding school for kids who just don't have places to go. There are so many teenagers who are homeless. That's the invisible population that many people in our world are not aware of. There are many children who just don't have a good home to sleep. And so their Project Seed started a couple schools, and I'm sure there's some out there. But I'd love to be able to build a school where kids, just 24 hours a day, they're just loved and supported 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's my ultimate goal.
Well, here's what I can guarantee you. A bunch of people just listen to this podcast, and the second you start that school, they'll be applying. I guarantee it. They would love it. So Principal Al, I took up way more of your time than I said I would, but you know what? I knew I was going to take up more time because I love talking to you, so I wasn't going to let you off early. But
I enjoy it, man.
Thanks,
I enjoy it.
Man, thanks for taking the time to chat and, out of your busy day. And not only that, like, thanks for all the work that you do in education. So many kids are so much better off because of your influence, and so many teachers. And I know I'm one of them. And we're going to Sixers game, man. Can't wait.
You got it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Take care now.
Thanks everyone for listening. Have a wonderful day.